Eh, Cuando hablamos de meditación, no estamos refiriéndonos realmente a lo que usualmente, a lo que probablemente el Buda quiso decir por meditación. Usualmente nosotros creemos que meditar significa meditar en algo, en un objeto, en los Budas, en los Bodhisattvas, en los Yidams o en la mente en sí. Y aún meditando en la vacuidad, ¿sí? Pero lo que el Buda quiso decir es que hay muchas formas de conocer o saber cómo trabaja la mente. Una de ellas es por medio de las emociones perturbadoras, negativas o positivas. Entonces, ¿qué son estas emociones? ¿O qué son estos pensamientos? Y no importa si son los más lindos que podamos tener, basados en la bodhicitta o en la compasión altruista, estos pensamientos son de la naturaleza del oscurecimiento, tienen la naturaleza del aferramiento y por consiguiente no son liberadores. Lo importante entonces está en que la mente y todo lo que la mente produce, ya sea positivo o negativo, no es algo a lo que nosotros nos queramos aferrar. Queremos entonces, por medio de la meditación, dejar todos los conceptos positivos y negativos que hayan aparecido en nuestra mente. Ninguna categoría de bueno o malo o feo o bonito importa. Nada de eso importa. Porque todas estas categorías de bueno o malo, o positivo o negativo, producen conceptos. Entonces, podríamos decir, la meditación tendría dos pasos. El primero, reconocer cómo trabaja nuestra mente. Y el segundo, el poder soltarlo todo, no apegarnos a ningún concepto. ¿Sí? Eso nos liberaría. Ok, Kempo.
Okay, so let's, what I'm actually trying to say is, let's discuss about, distraction, okay, the meaning of distraction or distracted mind. Let's say our mind, ordinary mind, is always distracted. And the mind of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas are mind, but without any distraction. So now we need to understand what is this meaning of what is the meaning of distraction, right? So what do you think? For example, now let's say having a wonderful meditative experience. Sorry, someone is calling me, but I have to decline. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Carlos? Okay.
Yes.
So let's say someone is having the most wonderful experience in meditation. When you experience that meditation, within that meditation, there is sense of, sense of clarity. Within that meditation, there is sense of, let's say, emptiness. There is sense of some joy. And so all this are actually distraction on their own, even though it's a meditation. But it is a meditation with all this mindsets of clarity, of bliss, of emptiness, sense of that. Even if there's a sense of that. Why? Because if I sense that, it proves that in a very secret way, I am craving. My mind is craving. Carlos, in Tibetan, we have a word called Tsenma. Tsenma. T-S-E-N-M-A. Tsenma.
Yes.
Or Tenzin. Let's say Tenzin. T-S-E-N, Tsen. Zin. I get. Tsen. That's what I'm trying to explain.
Mhm.
So this, according to Tibetan, the word is in your meditation, in your most wonderful higher meditation. If you experience tenzin, this word tenzin. So tenzin, my understanding, is a craving, correct? Craving, a very subtle, secret, unknown craving. I am not craving, but I am craving without realizing I'm craving. That's what I meant. It's not that you are jumping on things. You yourself almost are unaware that back of those experience, you are actually having that kind of craving, which is then, is then in some way making your meditation, impure because of its quality, because it's being, because these are all negative emotions, right? Craving is negative emotion. You need to crave to the clarity, emptiness. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mhm. Okay.
Like even in Yidam practice, for example, or in Guru Yoga practice. Okay.
Bueno, entonces ahora vamos a hablar de la distracción, que es una mente distraída. Y es que nuestra mente, en nuestro estado ordinario, siempre está distraída. Pero ¿cuál es el significado de esto? Supongamos que estamos teniendo una experiencia meditativa extraordinaria, ¿sí? Un samadhi muy profundo, y estamos teniendo sensaciones de claridad, de vacuidad y de gozo, ¿sí? Pero aún estas sensaciones de vacuidad, claridad y gozo, que nos las describen como la naturaleza innata de la mente, son distracciones en sí. Porque de alguna manera, si siento eso, si siento la claridad, la vacuidad y el gozo, estoy de alguna manera probando, ¿sí? que existo, que hay un experimentador detrás de esta meditación. En tibetano tienen dos términos, uno se llama tsema y el otro tsensin, que son los que usamos para explicar este concepto. Si en la meditación estamos experimentando eso, tsensin, quiere decir que de alguna manera, de una manera muy sutil o de una manera, el Khenpo utilizó la palabra secreta, estamos siendo, o estamos desarrollando, ¿cómo se llama? Aferramiento o apego a estos sentimientos. Y entonces nuestra meditación, en vez de ser un acto puro, se convertiría en una meditación impura. ¿Por qué? Porque hay deseo, hay aferramiento a una de estas sensaciones tan sutiles de vacuidad, claridad y gozo, y eso haría que pues que estén basadas en una emoción negativa como es el deseo. Y esto sucede aún haciendo prácticas de Yidam o prácticas de Guru Yoga. Ok, Khenpo.
So now let's say let's talk about tenzin, okay? The word tenzin in Tibetan, that craving that I'm talking about. It's very important actually to know that and to let go of that tenzin. It's all about that. I was talking about earlier distraction. So I'm actually talking about distraction. So I'm saying that, even this kind of unknown craving that we experience in our dust of the meditation, where we don't think at all that it could be a distraction, it actually is a distraction, because it is distraction in the sense that it is, that kind of experiences are grasping nature, right? Very subtle grasping nature, very subtle craving from the 12 links of dependent arising. I think these are the 10 and 11, or 10, 11?
No, 8.
9 and
8 and 9, I think.
9, 8 and 9, 8 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
I think number-wise. So now when we talk about distract, we usually think of distraction means when you hear some kind of loud noise or when you see something happening. These are distraction. But these are distractions that can be very easily avoided actually. But the distractions that we experience through Dharma, these are dharmic distractions, right? And these dharmic distraction connected with the path actually are more difficult to overcome because we don't even realize that these are actually a distraction or obstacle. Distraction here is same as an obstacle, a hindrance, to our meditation, to our development of the meditation. Okay.
Bueno, entonces vamos a hablar de sensing, o ese deseo o esa sed que sentimos en la meditación y que nos puede traer distracción. Porque aunque no creamos que sentir o experimentar la vacuidad, la claridad y el gozo sean distracciones, en realidad sí lo son, ¿sí? Y porque estas son, digamos, todavía manifestaciones sutiles, muy, muy sutiles de las nidanas 8 y 9 que se llaman sed y aferramiento, ¿sí? Y pues son muy sutiles, muy diferentes a la distracción que sentimos cuando, por ejemplo, oímos un ruido fuerte. Un ruido fuerte mientras estamos meditando nos distrae, pero es fácil después, digamos, olvidarnos del ruido y volver a la meditación. Pero estas que llamamos distracciones dármicas o distracciones en el camino son mucho más difíciles de evitar y se nos convierten en un obstáculo que debemos vencer en nuestra meditación. Ok, Khenpo.
Okay, so let's say, distraction-wise, in Abhidharma teaching, they talk actually about 6 different types of distractions, but I'm not going to count. I'm just going to explain few things. One of them is what we are discussing right now. When they talk about inner distraction, outer distraction, so inner distraction, these can come under the category of the inner distraction because inner distraction meaning mental distraction. So distraction that is experienced by the mental consciousness, 6th mental consciousness. These are all connected to the 6th mental consciousness. And within that category, there are actually a few other more like, deeper distractions, such as what we actually right now talking about. So, like there is this one distraction which is like, distraction in terms of experience. There is a difference between this tenzin and then the one that I'm just now going to explain. The distraction with regard to one's experience, meaning like for that meditator, their own experience may not appear as a distraction, but rather as a very highly developed meditation. They may be right in their own right, that may be a higher development, highly developed meditation. But secretly, in that experience, secretly in that experience, there is that distraction. That experience itself becomes distraction. Why? Because perhaps I am more focused on the nature of the experience rather than the quality of the mind that actually produces that experience. Can you see the difference?
Ujú.
Okay, so that.
Bueno, entonces, en Navidharma se habla de 6 tipos de distracciones, pero pues no voy a entrar a hablar de todas ellas, pero sí está la categorización de que hay distracciones internas y externas. Aquí me estoy refiriendo a las distracciones internas, las que tienen que ver con la mente, y específicamente con la sexta conciencia, la que llamamos la conciencia mental. Hay otras categorías aún más profundas de distracciones, como de la que estamos hablando en este momento, y es la distracción por la experiencia que estamos teniendo en la meditación. Y hay una diferencia entre el sensing y lo que voy a explicar ahora. Y es que la distracción que tenemos por el gozo, la claridad y la vacuidad no pareciera como una distracción, sino que podríamos catalogarla como una experiencia meditativa muy profunda, muy elevada, ¿sí? Pero secretamente en esta experiencia sí hay distracción, porque entonces en ese estado meditativo puede ser que, o mejor dicho, la distracción consiste en que nos enfoquemos más en la experiencia de claridad, vacuidad y gozo, y no enfocarnos en la naturaleza de la mente en sí. Por eso se considera una distracción. Ok, Kempo.
So, generally, you know, we may never say meditation is distraction. Here, I'm actually saying that these kind of meditations are actually distraction, but not a distraction that is bad, the bad karma, not a distraction in the sense of, you know, of bringing about negative emotion. No, not in that sense. But in the sense of its own quality, actually. Is it one of the most pure meditation? Then the answer is, it is a good meditation, but it is not the best meditation. How come? You know why? So you see, a lot of people have meditation. We all meditate. We all can experience meditation, but our meditation will be very different. We all can have a very good meditation, but all of our good meditation will have a very different good, you know, different good meditations. It's understandable what I'm saying. Everything's good. We are all good meditators, let's say. So then how can there be, you know, differences in the good quality of the good meditation? There can actually, because that is the subtlety of the nature of the mind. We are, as a beginner, are not able to go that deep into the meditation. Why? Because we really lack, you know, Lakton meditation. We actually don't really have Lakton meditation. All of our meditation are more, you know, linked, connected with the Shine meditation, the Shamaka meditation, actually. Because Lakton Yeshe, meaning the wisdom, you know, Vipassana wisdom, that this Vipassana wisdom is the ultimate antidote, that which can cut through all these distractions, subtle distractions, which we right now just not discussed actually. So the only antidote, the only antidote that can eliminate. All of them is none other than the Vipassana wisdom or Vipassana wisdom meditation. It's actually same. It means, you know, it means the potential of primordial wisdom that we intrinsically inherit, actually. That's why earlier I said that we do not meditate, actually. Vipassana is not born through meditation, because Vipassana is the Vipassana wisdom. Vipassana wisdom is the Prajnaparamita wisdom, same name. And that actually is synonymous with our intrinsic Buddha nature mind, the unborn Buddha nature mind that we keep on saying, which means I am from the very beginning, you know, endowed with that, right? So therefore, how can this be born into me when I already actually own that, when I already, yes, own that inherently, intrinsically? Am I clear what I'm actually saying?
Mm-hmm.
So in our mind, when we think we need something from outside to work inside our mind. That's what I'm saying. It's wrong. It's not like that. We don't need anything from outside, from other people. We are very, very rich. We have all the antidote we need, and that is called the wisdom. The Prajnaparamita, whatever name you give it, that is the wisdom. All we need to do is to try to, try to recognize that wisdom. Try to, try to grab, we have to grab that wisdom, actually. So all these other things are things that is to help us to grab that, inherent existing wisdom, actually.
Okay. Generalmente creemos que pues, meditación es todo lo contrario de distracción, que meditación no es distracción. Pero lo que estoy tratando de decir es que la meditación sí es una distracción, ¿sí? Pero no en el sentido de que traiga emociones perturbadoras negativas, no, sino en el sentido de que hay una buena meditación y una mala meditación, o una meditación de mejor calidad y una de menor calidad, ¿sí? Todos meditamos, ¿sí? Pero la experiencia de meditación que nosotros tenemos es diferente, depende de nuestra capacidad, digamos. Como principiantes, nosotros no podemos tener una meditación tan profunda, ¿sí? Porque todavía no tenemos la capacidad de hacer una meditación de Lakton o de Vipassana, sí, o de Yeshe, como la llaman en tibetano, de sabiduría última, ¿sí? Y este tipo de meditación, la meditación Vipassana o de Lakton, es, digamos, el antídoto último que tenemos contra este tipo de distracciones internas, distracciones que tienen que ver con la sexta conciencia mental. Este es el único antídoto que nos ayuda a eliminar ese oscurecimiento. Esa meditación, la meditación Vipassana, entonces, es la que nos lleva a lo que llamamos la sabiduría primordial, o la Prajnaparamita. Por eso dije que nosotros no meditamos, porque no logramos todavía ese nivel de Vipassana o de Prajnaparamita, o también lo que llamamos la naturaleza búdica intrínseca, que ya tenemos. Entonces, ¿cómo pueden hacer en nosotros esta naturaleza búdica intrínseca si ya la tengo? ¿Sí? Y aquí viene la confusión, creemos entonces que necesitamos algo de afuera para introducir, digamos, para traer a nosotros, que necesitamos algo externo para lo interno. Pero eso está mal, porque nosotros internamente ya somos extremadamente ricos, ¿sí? Ya tenemos esa sabiduría interna, la paramita está en nuestra mente desde tiempos sin principios. Lo único que debemos entonces es reconocer esta sabiduría, de alguna forma como tomarla, como hacerla nuestra. Ok, Kempo.
Third Karma Anjun Dorjes Mahamud Rabbok, in that prayer, he talks about, the great blessed wisdom. So what is great blessed wisdom according to him? That means happiness. In simple way, it just means, happiness, pure joy. It just means pure joy, pure happiness. I like that actually better. So what exactly is a pure joy? A pure joy is a pure joy when there are no craving in that pure joy. A pure happiness is a pure happiness when it is not at all polluted by cravings and graspings as such kind. It's beautiful, right? See, like we, in our happiness, why can my happiness, it's actually not that our happiness is not always pure. I do think that we experience pure happiness many times a day, actually. But when that joy is connected with friends, families, acquainted people, then it tends to become more emotional automatically because attachment somehow is there. Craving somehow is there. However, you do not want it, it's just there, unfortunately, so to speak. But it's not an unfortunate thing, but no, it's not. Please don't think that it's a very bad thing. No, it's not actually. We can improve that. We can see those happening with us. So this is what I'm trying to discuss with all of us, like in my meditation, very pure, what is a pure meditation, right? Actually, pure meditation is a pure state of mind. That's it. It's not that you have to sit somewhere in a very nice lakang with a very, nice cushion and then very nice breeze. And then you feel, oh, okay, now it's a beautiful. No, actually, you can be in a very disgusting place, in a very, horrible situation. But at the same time, you really, really can experience the most pure state of the mind right there and then. That's it. It's not about conditions. It's about what's happening on the inside, not on the outside, right? Okay. Yes, that's it. That's all I said.
Okay.
So, in our, so that's what we, Karma says, luminous nature of the mind is a mind without tenzin. And without tenzing, meaning without any grasping aspect of these two kinds of clingings of the phenomena and of the self. Hello, Carlos?
Yes, I got that. Okay.
All right.
Bueno, entonces, voy a volver a explicarlo todo. Entonces vemos cómo la meditación no es lo que normalmente pensamos que es, ¿sí? Por ejemplo, volviendo al texto del tercer Karmapa, cuando habla de la naturaleza luminosa de la mente, ¿a qué se refiere? ¿Qué significa esto? Y Karmapa dice que es una mente sin ningún tipo de aferramiento. Por eso en tibetano usan el término sensing mepa. Sensing como aferramiento y mepa como negación, sin aferramiento. Sensing mepa, sin aferramiento. Entonces, si experimentamos el gozo y de una manera pura, sin tipo de aferramiento, sin aferramiento, entonces esto sí nos lleva a detectar o a percibir la naturaleza luminosa de la mente. Pero sensing no está conectado con esto, o sea, es pues el obstáculo, ¿sí? Sensing nos conecta más bien con la ignorancia. con la forma en la que nosotros vemos las cosas. Y el problema es que normalmente nosotros no percibimos las cosas tal como son, sino las vemos distorsionadas. Vemos existencia donde no hay existencia. Por ejemplo, la vacuidad no existe, ¿sí? Entonces, si yo veo la vacuidad, estoy equivocado, digamos. Pero esto sucede por mi tendencia a aferrarme a los fenómenos como existentes, y especialmente al fenómeno más pertinaz de todos, que es el aferramiento al yo. Entonces, de ahí surge, de ese aferramiento al yo y a los fenómenos, surge o es la raíz de este Zhen-Xing, el aferramiento más sutil a las experiencias mentales. En cambio, cuando veo la naturaleza de la mente sin aferramiento, entonces ahí sí puedo percibir lo que llamamos la naturaleza luminosa de la mente. Ok, Kempo.
All right. So, we have to remember that we are not always self-grasping all the time. For example, you are not always thinking, I'm Carlos all day long, actually. I don't think so at all. But when do you think that I'm Carlos, or when do I am Kempo? Is when we come in contact with other people. Only then when we make this distinction, when we make separation, you are this, I am that, only then this notion of, oh, I am, this person, and he is that person. It's not that we are constantly always clinging. And then same with the phenomena also. We don't around the clock cling, I think. When do we cling phenomena is when we come in contact with a very specific object. Then yes, oh, you think, oh, this is a very beautiful town, or this is a very beautiful mountain, or things like that. So my point is that in a day, there are chances that we can recognize our mind, like 100 times. Because let's say most of the day, perhaps we are without any major grasping, any major clinging, right? Why? Because there's no reason for us constantly cling or constantly grasp, which means we are very much abiding in our own, this non-dual state of the mind without actually knowing that I am abiding in non-dual state of the mind. But that actually is the non-dual state of the mind, right? Why non-dual? Because there are no separation of this, of that, of me, of them. So that's what I'm saying, is that actually if it clicked, that's it. That's it, meaning that's the Dharma Dhatu, that is suchness. When that non-dual state of the mind clicks to me, that's pretty much it, actually. That's the meditation we are talking about. Am I clear what I'm trying to say? We do have those moments. It's not moments, lots of moments, especially nowadays when you're locked up, I guess. The whole world is locked down. You have nothing to do. So I guess we are very much in a very non-dual state of mind. Don't get yourself distracted by hearing a lot of things. Avoid them actually. What is the point of just talking about whether or not there is a cure? What's going to do that to us? When there will be a cure, there will be a cure. The whole world will come to know that. We don't have to rush. We don't have this, we have to don't do nothing actually. We just have to wait, just like we have to wait for our death. The same, just in general actually. Oh, I'm going somewhere else with this actually. But in general, we are always waiting for something to happen, right? Without thinking what is going to happen. You never know. But now there's this corona thing, and people are so so hit by it. And I understand that because this kind of change is the hardest hit that we ever got in our lifetime. but it's bound to happen actually. Anyway, so I'm coming back to, to the meditation point of view. So when I am not thinking all these things that's going on around me, around the world, or when I don't think about the lockdown, about economic, and about all that suffering, when I sort of isolate myself in my mind, and when I am truly myself on my own, I can pretty much be in that non-dual nature of the mind, so to speak. A little peace will be born, a little happiness, non-dual happiness, non-dual peace. That's what we need, and a non-dual wisdom, actually. So that's what we need. But don't force it, like tomorrow or today is for you today, but like, oh, Kimball said that, so I need to sort of force you can't force it. It has to happen very spontaneously, I guess. Okay.
Bueno, entonces, debemos recordar que no siempre estamos pensando en yo soy Carlos, o yo soy Kempo, o yo soy Ana, o lo que sea, ¿sí? Esto solo sucede, digamos, cuando estamos en contacto con otras personas. Ahí es donde, digamos, se solidifica nuestro aferramiento a yo como una persona cuando estamos en contacto con los demás. Y esto también sucede con los fenómenos. No todo el tiempo estamos pensando, qué pueblo tan bello, qué montaña tan bella, qué cosa tan espantosa, lo que sea. Durante el día, se puede decir, tenemos muchas oportunidades, cientos de oportunidades en las que no estamos, digamos, afectados por esta dualidad y que serían entonces momentos oportunos para poder reconocer la naturaleza de la mente. Porque nosotros no estamos en estado de aferramiento permanente. A veces estamos en un estado no dual de la mente. Lo que pasa es que estamos distraídos y no lo reconocemos. Lo único que tenemos que hacer es entonces reconocer esos estados no duales de la mente que podemos experimentar varias veces al día. Si lo logramos, entonces estamos en lo que llamamos el estado de Dharmadhatu, el estado no dual de la mente. Y pues bueno, ahí hace referencia a la cuarentena y dice que ahora que estamos en cuarentena, nosotros podemos estar muy preocupados por la situación, porque realmente, podríamos decir, el coronavirus nos ha dado el golpe más fuerte que hemos experimentado en nuestra vida. Y entonces podemos estar preocupados permanentemente de va a haber una cura o no la va a haber, me va a afectar a mí o no me va a afectar, pero pues nada de esto es necesario. No tenemos que sentarnos a esperar nada, de la misma manera que no nos sentamos a esperar nuestra mente, sino que nuestra muerte llegará espontáneamente, ¿sí? No hay que hacer nada, ella llegará. De la misma manera, puede que la cura llegue o no llegue, pero no tenemos que preocuparnos por esto, ¿sí? Cuando no pienso en lo que está pasando, entonces estoy más conmigo mismo, ¿sí? Cuando paro esa corriente mental, entonces me acerco a ese estado no dual. Ahora, no se trata que entonces apenas termine la charla, todos empecemos, el Kempo dijo que no debo tener pensamientos duales, entonces tengo que, no, porque este es un estado que no se puede forzar, ¿sí? No hay forma de lograr ese estado por medio de la fuerza o la diligencia. Es un estado que se logra de manera espontánea. Ok, Kempo.
All right. Now, the third line from Karmapa, actually line one stanza, so I'm going to explain that. So we talked about what is really the meaning of pure joy. And I think, the meaning of why we call mind a luminous nature. So these are the two reasons. Now the third, term for that mind, besides pure joy besides luminous is non-dual or non-conceptualized. In Tibetan, we have three words we call Dewa, Sarva, Mitokpa. So Dewa is the pure joy, Sarva is the luminous nature of the mind, Mitokpa is the non-conceptual state of the mind. Again, Karmapa actually, third Karmapa, Rangjung Dorje, the Mahamudra, he talks about it and he says that, you know, non-dual or non-conceptualized is a state of a mind that is beyond all the conceptualization. What does that mean? It means the actual meaning of, you know, non-conceptual state of the mind is beyond being conceptual or non-conceptual. Because if there is a conceptual, there will be a non-conceptual. And if there is a non-conceptual, there has to be a conceptual. Because non-conceptual is the, you know, is the opposite of conceptual state of the mind. So going beyond, as in non-dual is the better word in this, you can see non-dual. I mean, like non-conceptual is non-dual. Why? Because it's free from this kind of dual experience of being conceptual or not being conceptual. Mitokpa, in Tibetan, when we say Mitokpa, it's actually very beautiful. It just means, Mitokpa just means not having any idea, not having any idea about it, or not generating any idea about it, actually. Not generating any thought about it. I like that because as soon as something appears to our mind, we start generating concepts about it, ideas about it, and then we create all the craving, all the grasping around it. So that's the distraction part, right? That's how the distraction enters in our mind as soon as when things appear to our mind, because we are not able to let it be, because we're not able to stop conceptualizing. We're not, yes, conceptualizing. Because of lack of power of wisdom, actually. Because of lack of power of the wisdom of Vipassana, we are lacking that. That's why, you know, until the time we gain the Vipassana state, the true Vipassana wisdom, we will not be able to experience that non-dual state of the mind, which means we will not be able to experience this mind that has this quality of pure joy, luminous nature, and then the non-dual state. We will not be able, because this three things describes, these are the three defining characteristics of the nature of the mind. Three defining characteristics of Laktong, actually. Laktong or the Laktong wisdom. Okay, Carlos.
Bueno, entonces, en este poema del tercer Karmapa, en la tercera línea, habla del gozo puro. ¿Y cuál es el significado del gozo puro o de lo que también llamamos la naturaleza luminosa de la mente? En tibetano tenemos tres términos: Dewa, Sarva y Mitokpa. Dewa es gozo, Sarva es luminosidad y Mitokpa es no dual. Pero entonces, ¿qué significa esto de no dual o no conceptual? Y se refiere a estar más allá de lo conceptual o lo no conceptual, porque pues lo conceptual y lo no conceptual dependen el uno del otro, digamos. Cuando hablamos de conceptual, entonces estamos hablando de no conceptual, y cuando estamos hablando de no conceptual, pues estamos hablando de lo contrario de conceptual. Entonces, no dual, podríamos decir, es lo mismo que no conceptual. Metokpa, un término muy bello, significa entonces no tener ninguna idea o no generar ningún pensamiento acerca de, ¿sí? La distracción entonces sucede cuando las cosas entran en contacto con nuestra mente. En ese momento empezamos a conceptualizar. Y hasta cuando no logremos este estado no dual o no conceptual de la mente, no podemos entonces experimentar la verdadera naturaleza de la mente de gozo, claridad y vacuidad. Ok.
All right. And how can one gain that experience? Then Karmapa actually says the end, the last, line from the 4 line, last line in that very he says, when there are no effort from the side of the practitioner, that is when the meditation is spontaneously born in us. I like this part because we sort of think that we have to put so much effort, and mentally, of course, not physically, mentally we, put so much effort, and this effort, they in turn become distraction. They actually drive us away from the actual meditation. That's how it becomes the distraction. So, like Karmapa, the word in Tibetan is Tolwa Mepa. Tolwa Mepa. Tolwa meaning effort, Mepa meaning less, effortless, effortlessly. So which means spontaneously, right? Because meditate, that kind of, experience is a very spontaneous experience of the nature of the mind. The 3 defining characteristics of the mind is experienced spontaneously, not forcefully at all. That's what actually he's saying, right? All the meditators saying that we cannot force Buddhahood. We cannot force realization. Actually, forcing is one of the most obstacle actually, when we try to force ourselves. In anything, I guess, actually it's about life in general, in my understanding. In life, everything really has to happen spontaneously. Things just come together. When things just comes together, that's it. That's all we need. When conditions and causes comes together, when they meet, there is a very spontaneous reaction. There's a very spontaneous, interaction. From that very spontaneous interaction, then the realization is born. So what we are doing is that we are learning, reflecting, meditating. That's very good. So we have acquired all the conditions, all the causes. Now we just have to wait for this cause and condition, which is in our mind in the form of merit, in the form of knowledge. When these two meet at the right time, then very spontaneously, we will actually see that. We will see the nature of the mind, just like Milarepa says, you become Buddha. That's how you become Buddha. So we are on the right track. I very much believe that we have all the good conditions and good causes. I hope maybe it's not good enough. Maybe it's not sufficient enough yet. That's why the potential is somehow lacking. But at a right time, when we have acquired enough merit, enough wisdom and method, and then when they meet, that's it. Then there will be the flame of the wisdom, right? Just like that. So that's really, I'm not saying something very nice. I'm not trying to, make us feel good. Actually, it's not. It is, I am being very honest, actually, in what I'm saying. So that is the truth. Cause and conditions, when they come together, no one can stop them from producing its result. Okay, Carlos.
Ok. Entonces, ¿cómo logramos esto? El tercer Karmapa lo dice en la siguiente línea, cuando no hay esfuerzo, cuando la meditación es espontánea, así lo logramos, porque el esfuerzo en sí es una distracción. En tibetano tenemos el término Tolwa Mepa. Tolwa quiere decir esfuerzo y Mepa sin, entonces sin esfuerzo, espontáneo. Y es que las tres características de la mente se experimentan espontáneamente. No es algo que se pueda forzar, no podemos forzar la luminosidad de la mente. No podemos esforzar la luminosidad en la mente. El esfuerzo es en sí un obstáculo. Y esto es válido no solamente para la meditación, sino para todo en la vida. Todo debe suceder de manera espontánea. ¿Cuándo? Cuando las condiciones y las causas se juntan, esto produce una reacción o un resultado que es espontáneo. Se puede decir, podemos decir, es inevitable, ¿sí? Nosotros en este momento estamos leyendo, razonando y meditando. Estas son las causas que nos generarán la sabiduría, digamos, el entendimiento. Cuando esto se junte con el mérito que acumulamos por las buenas acciones, entonces obtendremos de manera espontánea la realización. Podremos ver la naturaleza de la mente y convertirnos en un Buda. En este momento creo que tenemos unas muy buenas causas y también unas muy buenas condiciones. Tal vez no sean perfectas, tal vez nos falte mérito y también nos falte algo de sabiduría, ¿sí? Entonces, no, pero en el momento en que logremos más mérito y más sabiduría, alcanzaremos la iluminación. Y no les digo esto para que se sientan bien, no es que les quiera decir algo bonito, se los digo porque es así. Cuando se juntan las causas y las condiciones adecuadas, el resultado es ineludible, digamos, es inevitable. Ok.
All right, so I think I'm going to stop here for today. And so next Sunday we have, I guess you have already announced or you have not announced, we are going to do the 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas every Sunday, right?
Yes. Entonces, bueno,
Okay.
el tiempo va a parar las enseñanzas por hoy, ya es suficiente, pero pues él no sabe si ya lo hemos anunciado o no lo hemos anunciado. No lo hemos anunciado, pero lo estamos anunciando ahora mismo. A partir del próximo domingo, el Kempo estará enseñando sobre el texto que se llama Las 37 prácticas de un Bodhisattva.
All right, so if there are any questions, I would take few questions, so you're welcome.
Y el Kempo quisiera responder preguntas, si hay en este momento alguna pregunta.
All right.
No hay preguntas.
So I guess no, right?
Parece, there seems to be no questions today.
All right. Okay, so all right, you guys have a very good day, I guess, and then practice, you know, as good as you can, and then we will see next Sunday, I guess, right? Next Sunday, and then we'll talk about the Bodhisattvas, you know, practices. I'm glad that you guys are, you know, hearing teachings from me and from other, I think, Lama Chamba and perhaps sometimes Rinpoche. So it's good to, you know, be connected, especially times like this. It's good. Dharma is a good reminder, actually. Dharma is a good reminder of our existence, who we really are. You know, now is the time when we need to remember that we are not an ordinary people. We are, you know, Buddhist. And if from that point of view, I'm not saying that we are special and we have power. No, actually, we have wisdom. That, you know, we are fortunate that we have this wisdom, which is the gift of the greatest teacher ever lived, which is Buddha Shakyamuni himself. So we have that gift, and we have those things to you know, help us in our life, in our life in general, actually, and now all the lifetimes. We can very much depend on the Dharma, and Dharma will never ever fail us at all unless we fail the Dharma. So we really should be very happy that we have such a noble, priceless, invaluable, you know, thing called Dharma, you know. So so that is the truth, and we should, that's what we depend, many we take refuge. Now is a very good time to take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, in the Sangha, by reflecting, you know, whatever we have learned so far, whatever we have heard so far. It's very, very important now to reflect on those things. When we reflect on those things, it will only and only grow. Everything that we have learned will grow, and then we will grow as a Dharma practitioner. 100% you will grow as a practitioner, everything. So the growth, you know, that's what we need, the growth, you know, in us as a human being. And especially as a Dharma practitioner, the growth is very important. The growth can only come through learning, reflecting, and meditating. And this is what we are doing, as what you are doing. So please keep doing that. Just reminding you. And so thank you, everyone. And see you next Sunday.
Okay, thank you, Khenpo. Bueno, entonces, con esto terminamos. El Khenpo nos desea que tengamos un buen día, que practiquemos y que meditemos. También debemos estar agradecidos de que estamos teniendo enseñanzas, no solamente del Khenpo, sino de Lama Yampa y también de otras personas, otros Rinpoches. Esto es realmente extraordinario para nosotros. Nosotros no somos personas ordinarias, somos budistas. Y eso no quiere decir que seamos superiores a los demás, no, o que seamos especiales, no, sino que contamos con una sabiduría que las personas ordinarias no cuentan. Nosotros tenemos entonces, hemos recibido el regalo más alto del más grande de los maestros, el Buda, que ahora nos ayuda en esta vida y en todas las vidas, porque el Dharma nunca nos fallará, a no ser que nosotros le fallemos al Dharma, en el sentido de abandonarlo. Entonces debemos estar felices de tener esto que llamamos el Dharma, y que es el momento apropiado para tomar o para reflexionar en qué es en lo que nosotros tomamos refugio cuando decimos que tomamos refugio en el Buda, en el Dharma y en la Sangha. ¿Por qué? Porque esto es lo que nos hará crecer como personas y especialmente crecer como practicantes. Este crecimiento entonces se basa en el proceso triple de aprender o leer, segundo, reflexionar y tercero, meditar. Y estamos entonces en el momento preciso para poder ejercitarnos en estos tres aspectos: aprender, reflexionar y meditar. Entonces, pues, les deseo que tengan un buen día y nos veremos el próximo domingo, empezando con las enseñanzas sobre las 37 actividades de un Bodhisattva.